back to the garage. Today we're going to continue working on the 56 oval project. I wanted to show how with some simple parts, some cardboard, some scissors, a marker, we can replicate rotten metal rusty parts in cardboard first, and we can eventually make a piece of metal to replace it. As you can see, this component has fully rusted out. Years and years of salt, corrosion, rust. We've got pinholes here, too many to just weld up. We've got a lot of rust. We've got some fairly solid metal here surrounding it. And this metal, we're going to show in another episode, has been removed specifically so we can spot weld back in the structural member that goes behind here called the heater channel. But this is the specific area here we're going to look at today, and how to work with cardboard and steel and replace that component. So the first thing I like to do is I like to draw some fairly straight lines. As you can see, I've already done it here to illustrate the area that we're going to remove, paying special attention to where I want to leave the good steel. Then I came along with a piece of cardboard and eventually cut a piece of cardboard to this shape. You see here I have a pinch welt. It's a complete bend. So what I do is that's approximately 1/2 inch. I just overlap the cardboard by that 1/2 inch, knowing that eventually we're going to bend it as so. And what I do is when I place that initial piece on here, I like to mark out where the body lines are. You can see there's a intense body line here. There's one here, and I transferred that initially onto the cardboard. I then slid it up, did the same from underneath, where those body lines were, here and here. And the next step was to take it over to the table and transfer it onto a piece of metal. This is your standard 20 gauge steel. It's similar thickness or slightly thicker than what the original car was made from. I buy this scrap. Most metal stores will have a scrap area in the back that you can go to for a couple of bucks based on weight. Cash money, you can get yourself some scrap to work from. But basically I'm going to put the cardboard part on top of the steel, and I'm going to mark it. Of course, your usual rules apply. There's no sense cutting more than you need to, so if you've got a square edge here, you may as well line it up with a square edge on the steel. I use a Sharpie for this sort of thing. It marks the steel very nicely. So I'm just going to trace around the outside. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where all my extension lines are, and I'm going to slide the cardboard up, and I'm going to do the same thing here. As you'll see, that metal's fairly forgiving, so later on as we move this, the precision's not 100% important at this time. We want to make it close, but we can always adjust it later to fit. I now take a straight edge, and I'm just going to connect the dots, so to speak. Now these are all indicators of course, where the part is going to be bent in order to put in place on the car. Okay, here we are. We're ready to cut this particular part out that we've just drawn the profile on the metal. Now, I'm going to use a metal cutting bandsaw for this. This is a heavy-duty 1940s bandsaw. It runs a little bit too fast for metal. It's running a bimetal blade so that it will cut. It's good for sheet metal. I would need to slow the blade speed down in order to cut anything thicker. And you don't need one of these. You know, it's nice to have it. This is a surplus one I got from my place of employment. It's heavy duty. It does the job. But, you know, this is the sort of thing you can do just as well with a pair of shears. These are left-hand cutting shears. Many people don't know that about shears. They come with different color handles. Green for right-hand cutting, red for left-hand cutting, and yellow for straight. Most guys have the yellow ones and are very frustrated by the way they cut. But just to show you, with a pair of shears, you can follow the line very neatly and work your way all the way around until you've got the part cut out. But once I get my safety glasses on here, I am going to show you using the bandsaw how to cut out this piece of sheet metal. I've got safety glasses on and I'm pulling my long sleeves up. Bandsaw's a dangerous machine, and you always want to be safe. Even if you're just a home mechanic like me, you know, we don't want to lose our fingers while we're doing this. Of course, with the bandsaw, you typically can't make any very sharp corners. You can also have limitations as far as the throat of the saw. This piece of metal isn't going to fit straight through, but I'll show you a few tricks in cutting this out. Always try and follow the outside of the line. We can always sand it down to the line. That's as far as the throat of the saw will allow, but because it's sheet metal, I overshot the cut a little bit there, and I'll show you why now. And now line up on the other side, start to pull them out. I've made a relief cut now. I'm going to set the scrap aside. As you can see, I've made this relief cut, and I'm going to go in now and I'm going to cut that off. Now we have a piece of metal that's more or less cut to shape. One piece of equipment that I never thought I'd get so much use out of is your standard belt sander. This is a large unit, again, a surplus unit. I love old tools. As you can see, there's some lines that I didn't quite get up to the line, or I've got some raw edges, and I can make really short work of them now before I put it in the car. This is the sort of job you always want to use a pair of pliers for. Keep your hands away from the belt sander, and obviously the metal gets very hot. When you use these with wood, it doesn't really matter, but when you're using a piece of metal, it'll very quickly warm up and burn your hands. So we'll just quickly make short work of these rough edges. Backside now using the belt. Okay, now we got our metal cut out, and I'm gonna just in a few seconds here throw it on the brake and show you how to make the bends. But I bet you some of you guys are wondering, why am I making this out of scrap steel when you've seen the ads on JC Whitney and CIP1.com and you can buy this exact piece from them? Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, for the 56 oval we're working on, you can't buy this exact piece. We're going to complete it later with some details underneath, and that's unique to the year. You can see that a lot in reproduction parts. Sure, the reproductions will fit, but they're not right. And for the person who's trying to restore things exactly, hey, that being right is all important. Also, hey, why would I order something, have it shipped, pay for shipping, pay for the part, when I can make it out of a few cents in scrap steel? So the next step here, I'm going to throw it on the brake. You may want to, first couple times doing this, make a note which way to make the bends go. I'm going to show you a little trick here when I get focused in on the brake to show you how I'm going to do the bends, because as you can see from my example, this part here gets bent up. These other two get bent the other way. So we got a trick for that. You're going to start doing your own metal work. It won't be long, and you're going to want to get yourself some kind of a metal brake. A brake allows you to bend. This is a 3-in-1 metal machine. It allows me to shear metal in a straight line. Here's a piece of scrap. There's a shearing blade at the bottom. You exert the force, and it cuts it off. It allows you to bend metal using the brake to 90 degrees, and it allows you to roll metal into a cylindrical shape. Work this back and forth a few times. And that's why this is called a 3-in-1. We talked about showing you a little trick for these bends, because if we threw this in the brake right now and I put a bend on each one of these lines, it wouldn't look right. It would all be bent like this, and the car doesn't look like that. So what we need to remember is that this first bend here, it gets bent up this way, but the other two bends go the other way, which means we have to do it on the back side. And an easy way to mark that is to simply flip your part over, notice your line here, and bring it to the back side of the part. all you need is a little line. Same thing in both cases. Just made a little line. I'm going to do the same thing on the back side, here and here. And that way, when I put this in the brake in a few seconds, you'll see that I'll just line these up against the blade of the brake and we'll make the bend. Okay, on to the next step. Now, whenever you're working with a brake, there's a few things you need to remember. First of all, they can put an enormous amount of force down, so you don't want to cut your fingers off. Secondly, you want to make sure that once you start bending, you can get the part back out. So if these bends did all go in the same direction, I would have a lot of difficulty getting this out without taking the blades out of the brake. So in this case, my tip to you is these first two bends are very shallow, so make them first. What I do is I line up the two marks we just made on the back, bring the handle of the brake down. I like to get the blade focused right on those 2 points, and then I'm just going to put a slight bit of pressure on there and get a bit of a bend. We can always massage that later into the exact right shape for the car, but we want to get a nice crisp even bend along that line to start with. Okay, the next piece, again, I massage it in there. It's getting more difficult now that I've put a bend in. I'm going to line up these two lines and I'm going to put another equally shallow bend into this piece of metal. So now, as you can see, we've got the first two bends in place, and all that's left to do is the final bend, which is going on the face side, and this is that pinch welt where the whole thing goes together. So now again, I line up this complete line in the brake, nudge it closely, and now I'm going to do a complete bend at 90 degrees, like so. Open up the brake, and now we have the part. Let's take this over to the car and see how closely it fits. Here we are. We're back at the car. This is the area that we're trying to reproduce. Eventually we're going to cut along this line, and we're going to take this part out. As you can see, this is the part I showed at the start of the episode, and this is the example of what we wanted to do. I came along here, this is the piece we just made, and as you can see, we're very close to following those same contours. Hopefully today you got an idea on how to take some scrap metal, a little bit of cardboard, a Sharpie pen, some scissors, and turn it into a perfectly shaped replacement panel for your vehicle. Hey, didn't take more than 10-15 minutes, and we've got something that's going to probably outlive the car itself. In the next couple of episodes, when we get back to the welding on this project, you're going to see how we cut right along the line, remove this old piece of steel. See, there's a little bit of a boss of an old bolt in here. That's actually a weld nut that holds the fenders on. We're going to need to align that later. You'll see that in the next episode. And we're going to start by tack welding and eventually fully weld this and grind it so you never knew that we ever replaced this piece. That's coming up in a later edition.